Now it's fine.
Yes, sir. Now, if you can go to the presentation mode, and sir, if you can minimize the Microsoft Teams
Now
window.
you are seeing my presentation or not?
Yes, sir. If you could please minimize that Microsoft window and
Yeah, sure, sure.
yes, sir. Now, if you click from beginning, I guess
Yeah,
that's
now it's fine. It's visible.
sir. It's taking time to load. Yeah, now
Yes, sir.
it's
Yes, sir. It's
completely fine.
perfectly fine,
Okay.
sir.
So we already discussed all this stuff, and this is the slide which I'm talking about. Here are the 3 points we are going to discuss in this webinar. In the first topic, we are going to talk about the differentiate between the aeronautics or aerospace engineering and the domain. In the second topic, we are going to talk about the current trends and the future scope in the field of aeronautics and aerospace in India. And the third topic, one of my favorite topic, the new era of aerospace. So it's visible for everyone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
So I personally call this whole era, not just in India, across the world, I called it the new era of aerospace, and in India into the new era of aerospace. So like we literally unlocking the space sector. So in this slide, we are going to talk and discuss about the differentiate between the aeronautics and aerospace engineering and the domain. So many people think that the aeronautics and aerospace both are similar. Like if I do aeronautics, I should call as a aerospace engineer. No, it's not. Well, why? Because in aeronautics, we study about the space aircraft. Like the word, if you see the word aircraft, it's mean that the any object which fly or stay in the atmosphere in air, we called it a aircraft. Example, helicopter, fighter jets, airplanes, all drones, all these vehicles come under the category of aeronautical or aeronautics. And then we have another field called aerospace. In aerospace, we study about the aircraft, spacecraft, missiles, satellites, rovers. But wait, here's the twist. Why we study about the aircraft? We already studied that topic already in aeronautics. Then why we study it in aerospace? The reason behind it, the aerospace combine of two different sectors. Number one, the aeronautics, and number two, astronautics. In aeronautics, we already discussed that we design and build the aircraft, example airplane, helicopters and drones. But in astronautics, we study designing, building and testing and fabrication of aircrafts, missiles, space shuttle, rocket, space station, rovers, ground station, and you named it, that come under the space category. We study about that. And in simple word, if you want to go to space, you need a propulsion, and for propulsion you need to work on rockets or a satellite propulsion to stay in space or go beyond. So now many people ask that how I can join this course. So there are many different type of course available right now, not just in India, across the globe, but here we have talk about the India. So in India you can do a 3 years diploma course in aeronautics and 4 years of BTech course in aerospace and as well as in aeronautics. And you can, after that you can pursue a ME master in aerospace or a master in aeronautics or BTech in aerospace engineering, which include aeronautics and aerospace. And if you go abroad, like if you go to US or Germany, you can also more specifically you can do in astronautics, like more specifically on working on rockets and satellites. So there are literally 4 or 5 top universities right now in India that offer this course. First of all, I'm going to talk about the aerospace because aerospace combines these two fields. So for aerospace, one of the best university out there is IIT Madras and IIT Kharagpur, and we have also IIST. But for aeronautics, all these 5 universities offer this course, like IIT Mumbai, IIT Madras, IIT Kanpur, IIT Kharagpur, and IIST. You can go and pursue this course. So I just want to, already many people know this stuff, so I just quickly change on another slide. So now we are going to talk about the aviation sector, like because we talk about the both sector like aeronautics and aerospace. So many people are again confused with that aerospace, we just talk about the space. No, there's a aviation sector also available in that category. So right now India is the third largest aviation sector. So companies like Airbus, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, all these companies are literally opening their startup in India. Like you can literally join this company and work on like a big giant planes, and even they get hands-on experience on rockets also, like Boeing India also working on that, and Lockheed Martin also. So, and you can also join some what you call airlines like Indigo, Vistara, and SpiceJet. These are the also company that work with the airplanes. So you can join these companies also. But now I'm going to talk about the one of the my favorite and the biggest in the aviation sector. The company is HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So you can join this. They're working on the what you call the aircraft, jets, engines, space. They also work on a space part. So this is literally important. And then another organization we have in India, that is DRDO, Defense Research Development Organization. We all know this. So they're working on the defense sector. So again, the aerospace is combined of space plus defense. So once you get hands on rockets, in some case you also get hands on defense sector also. So these two category come under the same sector. And in India, we have the space sector also. That is called organization called Indian Space Research Organization. We all aware of this organization, one of my favorite. So again, talking about the ISRO already recorded with by launching a 140 satellite at one time. We have recorded with a Mangalyaan mission that is called MOM. We have also like partially successful with the Chandrayaan 2 missions, and lots of another missions on a line, like with a Gaganyaan and another missions on a line. So I'm not going to talk about that. We literally change with another topic that is one of my favorite topic, that is in space. What is in space, man? So in space is a basically a department opened by the Indian government with the help of ISRO. The ISRO chairman K. Sivan sir reform after the government approval that no private sector can build rockets and satellites in India. To make it more simple, they decided to open a firm called In Space, a department, basically a department which help you to work in the field of aerospace sector, in the field of space sector, especially building on rockets, satellites, ground station, or even a parts that is related to space sector. So you can, and they also helping in the education sector also. So I suggest you, if you need a more information related to in space, I personally suggest you go to www.isrogov.in and you will get a structure, the whole structure of this organization. And now I'm going to talk about this market, this global space market. The global space by the end of 2020, it is around $271 billion USD. And $123 billion, that is 45% of the global space market, is covered with the satellite service. And with around $4.9 billion, that is around 2% of the launch industry. So it shows that how much vehicle we literally need to launch this type of satellites. And the satellite manufacturing companies are around $12.5 billion, that is 5% of global space market. And the ground station around $130.3 billion, that is 48% of the global space market. Now, now many people ask that what is the size of a satellites? So these satellites literally come in different shape and size. Like they starting with your mobile size, your braid size, lunchbox size satellites to a bus size satellites. So and the companies who launching a bus size satellites, if I named it, is the SpaceX. The Elon Musk rocket like Falcon Heavy, Falcon 9, they're launching a bus size satellites. And the companies who launching a braid size or mobile size satellites, if literally named it, there's one company is a American as well as New Zealand based company called Rocket Lab. We are going to talk about them also in coming slide. So now the last topic, the new era of aerospace, the new space race. Here's the 3 billionaire genius. Number one, Richard Branson, the Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbit, the CEO, working on a vehicle that take you a ride to space. Like they literally opening the space tourism for common people. The Richard Branson vision is that. And if you talk about the Elon Musk, SpaceX, they have a vision to send human to moon or Mars, like make humanity a multiplanetary species, like sending human to Mars and moon and bringing them back. And here's the Jeff Bezos with a company called Blue Origin. So Blue Origin, they're focused on the opening the space tourism for the low Earth orbit or suborbital, and also working on a mission called Moon Mission. This time they quote it like, we are not going to come back. This time we are going to stay on Moon. So again, these three guys are literally genius, and they are billionaires. So anything can possible. So I love these two boys. Like these two boys are literally changing the era of aerospace. Like this number one is Rocket Lab. The Peter literally started a company called Rocket Lab. They're focusing on a small satellites market, like a size of satellites from 1 kg to 300 or 200 kgs of a satellite. They are planning to launch it into the low Earth orbit. And there's another company called Astra. They recently launched a few rockets and they successfully achieve orbit. So these are the two companies. So now before I end my presentation, I just want to share with you one video which tell you, many people ask why we spending lots of money to sending a satellite into space. So what's the need to send a satellite into space? So to understand that, I want to play one video. So please. So you can see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now you can ask me a question.
So thank you for the for such an interactive. Thank you, sir, for such informative session. Now we will have a small question answer session in which the participants can ask their questions by either they can raise their hands and we will unmute them, or they can write their question in the chat box of Microsoft Teams, or they can write their question in the YouTube live stream. So you can just raise your hand, participants. There's a first question from Sujal Gupta. Sujal, you can unmute your mic now.
Good evening, sir. My question is that every day we hear about different propulsion systems, such that of solid, liquid, and cryogenic propulsion system. So can you please shed light on these technologies?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking me that question. So basically in rocket sector, mainly what we see the two different type of rocket propulsion, like the solid propulsion, the liquid propulsion, and another is cryogenic. So in the solid propulsion, what it's work like, once you start a rocket, you cannot stop it. Like once you ignite it, the rocket is not going to be stopped until unless they achieve that particular target. But in a liquid fuel rocket, you can stop whenever you want. Like once you think that no, my fuel tank is leaking, so I have to stop this mission. So you can easily stop that rocket at particular moment. Number 1 point. Number 2 point is in solid we can collect both fuel in the same fuel tank. But in the liquid fuel rocket, we can contain the two different type of fuel in two different type of fuel tanks. So what's the benefit of that? It's benefit that in human space flight missions, like if we talk about the Saturn V, the Apollo missions, they use a liquid propulsion. Why they use liquid propulsion? Why they don't go with a solid propulsion? Number one reason is that we cannot take risk on human. If anything goes wrong, we can stop whenever we want. That's the number 1 point that many if I named it like this, many companies like Elon Musk companies, SpaceX working on liquid propulsion. The main fuel they are using a liquid propulsion, that is RP1 and the what you call the liquid oxygen LOX. And RP1 is a rocket grade kerosene they are using in Falcon 9 as well as in Falcon Heavy, and now Rocket Lab also using the same fuel. What you call the Blue Origin using the same fuel, ULA company using the same fuel. But means you named it and that company using this same fuel and working on a liquid propulsion. Many few companies working on a solid propulsion. If I named it, yes, ISRO is working on solid propulsion, and we literally successful with that because we didn't send any human till now. But in future we definitely work on that, and as well as in many other propulsion system, like electric propulsion also working like companies like Rocket Lab. Like electric propulsion feed engine they are working on right now. They already successfully launched their rocket many times. Not, I think if I name more than 20 times they have successfully achieved the orbit. So yeah, hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sir, for this. Now we have another question from Vipul Poddar. Vipul, you can unmute your mic and ask the question.
Hello, sir. So I have a question regarding ITAR. Like, does ITAR prevent US companies to collaborate with India and Indian companies?
See, I'm not personally comment on this because these things comes to under the government, like government bodies. So what the see, all these things like the collaboration, whatever collaboration you are looking for in a high level or a small level, you have to go through in that particular country policy. Like if I tell you the example, we see that the Rocket Lab companies registered in USA, but their subsidiary in New Zealand. They launched their rocket from New Zealand, but they built their rocket engine in USA. But if you go and read the policy of USA, you can understand that you cannot cross the propulsion engine across the border. Like you cannot take the engine from USA to another country, but they are taking it. How? Because the policy they maintain with the New Zealand. So I don't think I can comment on this, and I can give you on the more feedback on this.
Okay. Okay, Vipul, your question is answered. Next question. So Naveen Kumar Pathak, you can unmute your mic and ask the question.
So my question is, why is it said that the technology of scramjet engine technology is the future of launch vehicles, whereas it is already used in the missiles quite successfully?
Jenika?
Naveen, can you repeat your question once? Your voice cracked.
So my question was, why is it said that the technology of scramjet engine technology is the future of launch vehicles, whereas it is already used in missiles quite successfully?
Yes, see, actually, what you are seeing with the missiles, you cannot every time you can use it in a space sector. I already told you when we build a rocket, we cannot just focusing on sending a cargo to space. Definitely, ISRO is working on that, and we literally see this stuff in coming future, because every day the new propulsion, like right now, this companies working on methane. Like more efficient than the RP1 fuel. So yeah, definitely aerospace sector, space sector definitely use that because it's already proven in our missiles, but it's not so easy because it's already takes so much budgets to literally shift with another propulsion system. And and we are here talk about ISRO. So ISRO get some particular budget to work on that particular things, and we already successfully achieved lots of things with a PSLV and GSLV. So yeah, ISRO have a plan with a different propulsion. They are also working on green propulsion. So yeah, let's see in coming future we can see this stuff working with ISRO. We personally in our company we also working with RP1 and LOX.
So I hope Naveen, your question is answered. Now, sir, the next question is from Prabal Sen. Prabal, you can unmute your mic.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Sir, as I am already studying at some different field of in BTech in civil engineering, so how can I go to the stream of aeronautics after my BTech? Is it possible?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Yes, it is possible. It doesn't matter. See, first of all, I'm not here to convince you to pursue aerospace engineering in master or in BTech. I'm here to convince you that even if you don't have major in aerospace, like if your background is with a civil, mechanical, electrical, or computer science, or even you are good at CAD simulation, you can join aerospace sector. The companies out there, they never told that we just looking for aerospace sector engineers. Like in our company, we will from by the end of next month we are going to open a vacancy for students, for college students. You can do internship as well as the full-time jobs in our company. So we not just looking aerospace engineering, we also looking the student who can help us to build a launch pad. For building a launch pad we need a civil engineer. Answer to your question, if you build a ground station we need a civil engineer. So you have to find out how aerospace sector with your background, like if you have a computer science, how you can help the aerospace sector with that particular major. If your background with a civil engineer, how you can help us in this space sector with your particular subject. So rather just thinking about how I can apply to it, you just go. And yeah, in ISRO they open the what you call the job for the mechanical as well as electrical students. So I don't think they open for civil, but in our company we open for everyone. Like it doesn't matter what's your background is, you have to crack that particular interview and you can join up from next.
Thank you, sir, for that answer. Now, Ram, you can unmute your mic and ask a question.
I think he's not given the access to. He has not.
Good evening, sir. My question is that I am a BTech first year civil engineering student, AJSIT Indore. So my question is that what are the opportunities for civil engineering students in aeronautical and aerospace engineering? Means I am civil engineering and if I want to make my career after engineering in space, then what can I do?
See, first of all, you have to shortlist in which domain you literally want to go. In aviation domain, if you want to go, like a companies who working with airplanes or drones, you have to shortlist all this company first. And if you want to go with the space sector or defense sector, you have to shortlist the companies with them. And
yes,
then
sir, probably defense sector and space sector.
Yeah, so for space and defense sector, yes, we need civil engineer, but not that much. Means, see, I always tell the student that don't think about that what your major is. If your major is with a civil engineering, it's great. You have a major in civil engineer, but you can learn the how to do a solid work, how to do a simulation, because it not take lots of time. It's in three to 2 months you can learn all this stuff. So always try to learn all these new things, and you don't have to pay lots of money because these all things already available on your YouTube. You can in free of cost you can study those stuff. And because if your background is in civil engineering, and we are looking student who know how to do a solid work, how to do a simulation, know how to test this particular stuff. If you know that knowledge, if you have that particular knowledge, it doesn't matter what your background is, what's your degree is, you can join that particular field. I'm not just talking about aerospace. Even if you want to join a computer science, like a Google CEO Sundar Pichai already tell, we're not just looking for a computer science engineer. We also looking for who done BSc in maths or physics. So it's just in our mind that we cannot do that particular thing.
Yes, sir, I am satisfied with your answer.
Okay.
But for the civil engineering domain, what should I be excelled in?
If you're good at civil engineering, and then look how this rocket launch pad work, like how to build a launch pad. Think about that first, because because right now the many companies are looking a student who can I'm not saying a student, are people who can help to build particular launch pad, the small launch pad, cheaper launch pad. So if I named it, there's a company called Rocket Lab. I already mentioned that company in New Zealand. They have built the 3 to 4 launch pad from scratch, like they build it from scratch. They don't go to NASA's launch pad and launch it from there. They build their own launch pad. To building that particular launch pad, you need a particular engineer, and for that particular engineer, you need some of the civil engineer background student. So I think that is the one domain you have to focus. And again, don't think what's your major is. You have to learn new stuff every day. If you're just thinking about your degree, like I have a degree in mechanical civil engineering, how I can join a aerospace sector, you can't join it because you don't know anything. You're just passionate about that. You have to learn more new things related to aerospace.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ram. Now, so the next question is from Soham Mandal. Soham, can you unmute your mic?
Hello, sir. Sir, I'm a first year BTech student, and sir, I wanted to ask that nowadays the billionaires have a common line of thought that they want to colonize Mars. But what, according to you, is better, colonizing Mars or healing the Earth so that we can explore other things in the space? According to you, what will be better?
Okay, so let's coming back to your question. Starting with your question, I know you're talking about Elon Musk. I personally know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So see, Elon Musk is particular billionaire. If he talking about that, I'm going to send and colonize a Mars, it's great. But he also, if you see his another companies, like working on solar cell, like solar panel, saving Earth, working on electric cars, saving Earth, opening a Boeing company, ground station, less traffic, less pollution. So indirectly, he helping Earth also, and also focusing on how you can colonize the Mars. So in my case, if I have to answer, yes, it's possible to colonize Mars or go to Mars, but we never told any entrepreneur, any space entrepreneur never told that we want to send rover to Mars because we don't like Earth, because Earth is going to be destroyed in coming few years. No, we never told that. The companies who working in this field, they are more focusing how to benefit Earth. And you can only understand once you read how space sector helping Earth from space. Like you named it, you working with, you book Ola, how you track this cab, you're getting internet right now. Around like many few people can access internet with a 4G or 5G. But nowadays, if we like directly deliver internet from space, what a Starlink mission of Elon Musk is, like directly providing an internet from space to each and every people, like 3.5 billion people across the globe, providing an internet. It doesn't matter where you live, you can get access of that particular internet. Similarly in the medicine, you named it, like in each and every sector, SpaceX benefiting directly or indirectly. We are depending on space. So going to Mars or Moon or even the low Earth orbit, it's not mean that we just want to stuck there. We are going Mars and Moon to explore the humanity, to help humanity on Earth. That's what I think. And if I have to answer what Elon Musk think, I think Elon Musk can say anything, like sending human to Mars and Moon. It's possible because he have lots of money in his pocket. He can build any starship, SN1, SN9, SN8, SN15. So it's possible, but companies like Rocket Lab and Astra, they are working with investors. They're using investor money to build rocket and launch it into the low Earth orbit and benefiting Earth. So it's not mean that you just have to become a billionaire to send human to Mars. Like if I have to give you an idea, like over here, right now NASA is space is basically focusing on sending human to Mars. So how you can benefit, help Elon Musk to achieve that particular goal, sending to Mars. You can build that particular stuff related to that mission. I don't want to give more hint on that, but you can understand what I mean. You can build a related stuff or a machine that help Elon Musk to achieve Mars faster, because it's not a one-time trip. You cannot just go and come back. You have to stay there. And you need lots of stuff. Like right now, there's one company building a 3D printing home on Mars. There's one company called Made in Space. They're building a tools with a 3D printing machines. So these are the few examples that you don't have to manufacture lots of stuff on Earth and take that to Mars, rather than just produce that particular stuff on Mars. So that's the most affordable, if I think.
Thank you, sir, for this. So now there is a question in our one question we have got from Abranil. His question is: we are launching so many satellites in space, and there is already a lot of space junk which is left uncleared. There is a potential danger. How can we clean that space debris?
Okay, first of all, I just want to tell you that even if you need to clean that space debris, you need to go to space.
Yes, sir.
Number one thing. Number two, the companies who coming up with the idea to send satellite to space, especially I'm talking about the low Earth orbit, that particular satellite, once their time is over, like that satellite is going to be a dead or called a debris, that satellite going to be destroy himself, like on that particular orbit. So like that, but like you need a propulsion to go to space to clean that particular debris in space. We literally lucky to collaborate with one university's name is IIIT Delhi, and one of the professor, they are working on cleaning the space debris, and we are working with them. So I can give you more hint how to clean that space debris. There's in USA, there's many companies working on to clean that space debris. That I'm not saying that is not a dangerous. We don't have to send satellite again to low Earth orbit or a space. We have to send it, but we have to make a plan or a policy in each and every country. Like if in India we think that okay, we are going to clean that space debris, it's not possible. Each and every country have to come together and think about how we can stop this particular problem. And already I mentioned you the customer, we are talking with them, they already made that type of satellites that they can destroy themselves once that particular work is done with that satellites. So from now onwards, the satellites, once their work is over, they are not going to revolve around the Earth like a space debris. So this is the particular answer, I think. There's companies working with them, they're making like a big giant ship that collect this space debris. Again, Elon Musk working with a Starship mission to clean space debris. So SN1 rocket is also working on that particular object. So yeah, there's many companies working on that, and we are in touch with few professors who working on this stuff. And if I did not answer your question particular, you can just drop me an email. I will answer your these questions. And I already told you that we are going to open a vacancy in our company. So if you're interested, you can also drop me an email with your resume and the stuff you interested in, and we will like recruit a student from next month.
That is a wonderful thing, sir. So okay, and so now we have a question from Rekha Sharma. Rekha, you can unmute your mic.
Yes. Sir, my question is, sir, can you please tell means which software we need to learn for like CAD, AutoCAD, one is SolidWorks and other is ANSYS and so many.
Yes, see, already if you study by your own, I can answer you that. But if you going to a particular institute, they will offer you that particular software to do that. But if I have to mention here, I love Autodesk and ANSYS, and these are the one of the famous companies who working with a space sector. Why I named these two companies? Because these two companies are already working with the space sector. You name the aerospace company in USA, these two companies working with them to helping designing the rocket engines, rockets parts, and helping them to collecting the data. So these are the two software, Autodesk and ANSYS.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So due to the shortage of time, we can't be answering all the questions to all the people now, but we will have one more question answer session in later on. So it was a great time for us to have this interactive session, sir. We learned a lot, and we hope to host you very soon. Yes, sir.
Sure,
Thank you for this. Thank you for this, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
Participants, please wait. We'll have the second speaker, Mr. Ankit Bhateja, joining us very soon. So just wait for a moment.
It gives me immense pleasure in introducing all of you to the next speaker of the evening, Mr. Ankit Bhateja. Mr. Ankit Bhateja is a renowned entrepreneur, researcher in the field of use of collaborative drones for orthographic imaging, and is also founder of Chauvian Aerospace Company India. Chauvian Aerospace, which is a distinguished member of the International Astronautical Federation, has gained expertise over time in manufacturing components like S-band antenna, magnetic talker, etc. The company has also successfully test-fired many amateur rockets which have caught nationwide attention. Along with providing a platform for innovation and research, it also imparts space science education to the economically backward school and has come up with CanSat, the cheapest miniature satellite. Now I would request Mr. Ankit Bhateja to grace the stage with his ever-inspiring words. Sir, you could just proceed with the session.
Also, we are giving you the access.
Yes, sir, you can unmute.
Sir, you may unmute yourself. They have given you the access.
Is it audible now?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah, so has everyone joined or we need to wait for 5-6
No, sir, you
minutes
could
more?
just begin.
Okay, so hello everyone. So first of all, maybe I can just have a brief idea about the students joining here. All of them are from first year, second year, or it's like mix of all the years and branches.
Sir, it's a mix of all the branches and years, but basically majority of the audience is from first years.
All right, all right. So so for basically for this talk, the format will be that I'll be just starting with a PPT. So in that, I'll be giving a brief about Zovian, like what we have done so far and currently what exactly we are doing in this domain. And then later on, as I had a discussion with the team, that I'm going to put a little bit highlight about the rising space entrepreneurship scope in our country, and what could be the various areas where students can jump in and go for ventures in this domain. So this will be the format of the talk. So now I'm beginning with the PPT. So what we can do is that once the PPT is done, we can go for the questions, and after a little bit of questions, we'll move towards the entrepreneurship and technology side of the things, where we can discuss about the futuristic areas or the areas in which we have scope in our country, particularly in the space domain. So if someone wants to ask questions in Hindi, they can also ask that way as well. So no need to just stick to a particular language. So whatever you feel like, in which language you are comfortable, just go ahead with that. So I'm just starting with the PPT. Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, it is visible.
All right.
It is visible.
So basically, Zovian, it was started in 2015 basically. So actually, we were college students at that time in 2013-14. So at that time, basically, there wasn't anything happening in space sector in India in terms of education related activities. And this was particularly a new domain in our country, because when we talk about US and European countries and other developed nations, so their space activities are very common. A lot of clubs are there, a lot of universities are there that are engaging hobbies and students in space related activities. But in India, this was a huge problem, because there weren't any student groups or clubs where these sort of activities were happening. So we thought of, why not just start with this particular thing and take this space-based hands-on activities to next level. So we came out with an idea, like maybe just we start looking at the international market and other countries, what is happening there. So then we got to know that there is something known as CANSAT, and all the clubs in European nations and US based states, different states are there. So all these people, they just participate there, and they need to make a CANSAT, which is basically a miniaturized version of a satellite under $1,000. So now when we talk about $1,000, it means that from that particular time it was around 65,000 rupees, $1,000. Now it's 73, but that time it was 65,000 rupees, which is again it's not like affordable for Indian students. And not in India, apart from India, other countries also cannot afford this type of hobby. So that's why, like, we thought of, why can't we just start this thing in India and cut down the cost in such a way that students are able to get a grasp of what is exactly a satellite, and they can also get some experience on hands-on activities. So that's how we came up with an idea, like developing a CANSAT, which is affordable for the students living in this particular region. So that's how it started, and we started with our own version of the CANSAT at that time. So again, later on, once the CANSAT was done, so we were launching these CANSATs with the help of amateur rockets. It was sounding rockets also that we had used at that time. So what was happening that during that time, sounding rockets were new in India, and after that, what happened that after 8 to 9 launches that we had done with the help of various institutions across the country, DGCA had put a ban on flying objects like drones and rockets. So now policy is there for drones, but basically sounding rocket policy is in still waiting, and there is no word from DGCA whether there is going to be the policy related to these things or not. Then we slowly expanded towards the high altitude balloon, which is basically launching the balloon, which is just like a weather balloon, and collecting the data from the near space region. Then slowly we moved toward the small satellite workshops. So this is basically representation of what a small satellite is, one CubeSat. So I will just give a little bit more brief about these things, what we had done. So basically what happens that CANSAT, it is basically like a electronic component logged with various sensors, equipment and processing based PCB where data processing can happen. All these things are combined together and we put it in a can. That can is basically launched with the help of a rocket. So it can also be launched with the help of a drone. So it basically mimics the journey of a satellite and how satellite collects the data and sends it to the ground station. So this satellite basically we put it on a rocket at the top of the rocket, which acts as a payload. So now rocket goes to an altitude of 2 to 3 kilometers, where it ejects the satellite and it comes down with the help of a parachute. So all this journey basically acts as a mimics the space mission. So this is what we had done. Then again, balloon set, I've already explained. We send the balloon, it goes to an altitude of 30 to 40 kilometers. There it collects the data related to radiation, be it solar radiation, cosmic radiation, temperature readings, ozone related data, pressure data, all these things. This is again a small set module. So far we have covered more than 11,000 students across India with 35 plus institutions, 21 states, and 1,000 plus modules we have sold in our journey so far. So now what happened that after 2015, when we were doing these things, we thought of like maybe just start expanding in other areas as well. So then we basically got in touch with some of the people who are working in this domain, basically from ISRO. Then we got in touch with them and came to Bangalore. So Bangalore is basically about all these things, because in North India, when we were working from New Delhi, it was very difficult to proceed with these activities. So that's why we shifted to Bangalore, and here we got to learn more about all these things. Then we got into a tie-up with the PES University here in Bangalore. So at that time, they were developing their own satellite. So we got to know about all the things, what happens in a satellite, how the satellite mission takes place, and what are the various challenges in this type of mission. So all these things we were able to learn at that particular facility, and whatever we had done after that was through this tie-up, be it development of satellite components and all. So now again we have proceeded with few other things which I'll be sharing in next slide. So after that, when we came to Bangalore, we started with the satellite components. Basically, this market is booming, and there is a need of components for small satellite market as well. So that's why we thought of like, why can't we just see what are the various components in a satellite are, and then take these components to the market. With the help of PES University, we had started with this thing, and currently we are involved in development of a passive radar based satellite constellation. So this is basically 3U satellite, 3U configuration based satellite that collects data from the Earth's surface, and that data is utilized for various purposes, which I'll be explaining in the next slide. So now what is happening that climate change issue, all of you know of that various places across the planet, a lot of climate related incidents are happening, extreme weather events are happening. We have seen the tornadoes and volcanoes. We have also seen forest fires happening in California, then Uttaranchal, then northeast region of India. Then there is a rising incidence in oceans, like you would have seen the recent incident of Soyuz Canal. And then there is a melting glacier problem due to which sea levels are rising. So now what is happening that the data which is coming from the current data collection systems, it is basically a scattered approach where the data is being collected with the help of a terrestrial based network where different sensors are collecting data from different places. Like for atmospheric data, if we say there are radars placed on the ground, and then we have weather balloons, and similarly for other things as well. Then we have satellite network, which is a space-based data collection system. So in that particular scenario, what we have is radar-based satellites, altimetry-based satellites, imaging satellites, and hyperspectral imaging satellites. So what happens with these satellites is that most of these satellites are placed in medium to higher orbits. So let's say there is a satellite which is placed in medium orbit and it is a radar-based satellite. So now for particularly for India, if suppose Indian government has launched this satellite, let's say 10 years ago in 2009 and 10, and the satellite weight is around 500, 600 kgs, and satellite is placed in medium orbit. So now what is happening that the revisit time of this particular satellite ranges from 6 days to 31 days. That means if a satellite is currently passing above uh, Bangalore and it is collecting the data from there, then there is a chance that it could again revisit that particular location either after 6 days, 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, depending on the orbit. So now that means the data which we are getting with that satellite is not enough to proceed with the predictive analytics of that particular region. That means the data which is coming cannot be utilized for the uh, data processing algorithms and predict enough in such a way that the predictions are actually accurate. So this is the big problem currently happening in each and every sector. And satellite-based data is not, real time when it comes to all these problems. And other problems, if we talk about, there's a problem with the vegetation scenario as well. We cannot predict the insurance covers for the vegetation farming sector. Then again, there is a problem with the logistics domain, and defense related problems are there, border security related problems are there. So all these problems, if we want to solve, we need to have a real time data. So now what is happening that due to a single problem, there are different problems linked with that particular thing. So let's say there is a Arctic belt melting. So what is happening due to that is basically sea levels are rising. So once sea level rise, so what happens that due to this sea level rise, coastal plains they start eroding the sand. So these waves strike with the coastal areas, and the soil erosion starts, which basically consumes a lot of area is eroded, and cities basically collapse. So this problem we are seeing in a lot of countries, a lot of coastal areas, and this problem will again keep on increasing in coming days, coming years, coming months. A lot of problems are going to happen which are linked to climate change. Then again, second example, if we see, let's say there is a drought in a particular region. So that drought will link to forest fires. Once the forest fire is done, the land will become barren. So there will be no cultivation, no farming that can happen at that particular location. So now what is happening there is a chain of consequences which is happening due to the climate change. So current satellites, as I've told that these are big bulky satellites. The revisit time of these satellites is very, very high. Volume of these satellites is very, very high. So, and the other problem is that when we talk about the imaging satellites, most of the satellites are imaging satellites that are utilized to collect the data of the Earth's surface, be it to predict the vegetation cover, be it for weather forecasting and other things. The problem with imaging satellites is that you cannot take pictures at night. So let's say currently it's around 7:20 in India. So if a imaging satellite is passing over by Indian subcontinent, it will be taking some pictures, but that pictures will be giving no data when it comes to the processing. Why? Because it's night currently in India, and you cannot take pictures of land in this particular timings. So other problem with the imaging satellite is that if there is a bad weather situation in a particular region, again you cannot capture the images beneath the cloud. So earth surface images you cannot capture if there is a cloud cover above the area. So in order to solve these problems, we have radar and hyperspectral imaging. They again have their own limitations. So now what exactly we are doing is something different. So that's what I'm going to explain now. So currently we have around 100 plus navigation satellites. Navigation satellites are basically the satellites which we use for the navigation purposes like GPS, GLONASS. All these satellites, they just beam up the signal and we utilize this data in our cell phones. And our cell phones basically show the current location at which we are currently standing at. So these constellations are basically divided into two parts. First one is the global constellations, and then there is a regional constellations. So global constellations are basically GPS, which is developed by US, and then there is GLONASS, which is basically developed by Russia. And there are other constellations as well, like Baidu, QZSS, and India has its own IRNSS. So IRNSS is basically a regional navigation satellite constellation. So this is meant to provide services to the Indian subcontinent, including countries like India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So this is the particular region our IRNSS is covering. So that's why it is regional navigation satellite constellation. But be it a regional satellite constellation or a global satellite constellation for the navigation, all of these constellations, all of these satellites work on a particular frequency, which is L band. It could be L1 band, L2 band, L4, L5. Different bands are there, but it covers the L band spectrum. So currently, if we combine all these satellites are around 100, near about 100. And all these satellites are placed in medium orbits. That means from ranging from 20,000 kilometers to 28,000 kilometers. A lot of orbital slots are there in which these satellites are placed. So now what is happening that all these satellites are beaming up the signals towards the Earth's surface 24/7. And that's how we are able to get the location in our cell phones. So now our plan is to put our own satellites in the lower Earth orbit, which is basically a 3U satellite constellation. And 3U is basically 10 by 10 by 30 centimeters. So now after placing these satellites in lower Earth orbit, which would be somewhere around 450 to 480 kilometers or maximum of 500 kilometers. So when we put the satellites here, so what happens that all these satellites which are there in medium Earth orbit, navigation satellites, their signals basically reflect from the surface of the Earth. So once the signal reaches the Earth's surface, they also get reflected back towards space. So now we are tapping onto these reflected signals and are telling what is happening on the Earth's surface. So basically, once you deploy a satellite constellation just like this and tap onto the reflected signals of the satellites which are above you, that means from the medium orbit, then you can collect the data in real time and the latency will be very, very less. And you can target a lot of areas with the help of such applications such as vegetation cover and defense and security, maritime industry, and all these industries which I had shown you earlier in the previous slides. So this is currently what we are doing. So what happens that when you compare this smaller satellite, which is of 3U configuration, with the bigger satellites, which are currently there in the orbit, so we can see that the volume which this satellite is taking, that volume, that cost, it can basically fund 100 such satellites. So this particular side, on the right side, you are seeing the number of satellites. They also have the same volume same as this particular big satellite, and the cost of this single satellite is same as the cost of all these satellites. So that is why all these satellites, when combined together, can provide much more accurate, much more relevant, and much more dense data as compared to the single big satellite. So this is what currently we have developed from the support from ISRO and central government, state government. So we are expecting to launch the first satellite by the end of this year. And these are some of the target areas that we are expecting to fetch the data and provide the services in these areas. So there will be a lot of impact of this data in various scenarios, be it from the climate change, drought, extreme weather events, and other socio-economic benefits as well. So this is what currently we are doing. So now probably most of you have understood what exactly we are doing. So probably we can go ahead with the questions quickly, and then we can have discussion related to the future scope and future things that are happening in this space sector.
Thank you, sir, for such an informative presentation. Now I would request all present here, if anybody wants to ask any questions, either in the chat box, you could type it in the chat box, or you could just raise your hand and our team will give you the option to unmute so that you can unmute and ask the question. If you aren't able to do any of these, you could just write the question in the comment section of our YouTube channel. So, sir, we have a first question from Ashutosh Kumar Singh.
Yeah.
Ashutosh,
good
you
evening,
can just
sir.
ask a question.
Yeah,
Good
Ashutosh.
evening,
Hi.
sir.
Yeah, good evening.
So this is Ashutosh. So I have a question. So when can we expect laser propulsion systems to propel large spacecrafts? Is it a feasible method, and can we expect to see it incorporated in the existing space technology in the near future?
Yeah, so if we talk about this type of technology, so there are a lot of companies working on this thing on the commercial side of the things, and there is a lot of universities that are engaged in this type of projects. The first thing you need to see that when we talk about technology which is futuristic and it is yet to be utilized in the space mission, so first we need to see why currently that technology is not being used in the current missions. So there is one thing basically which is the feasibility part, whether it is feasible or not. And now let's say if it is feasible, then we need to see the commercial viability of that particular thing. Let's say ISRO or some other space agency, they start utilizing this type of thing. So they need to see it from the commercial side as well, whether there is enough commercial viability of that. Let's say they are putting 100 crores currently in the propulsion stage, and all other propulsion mechanisms, be it thrusters and other things. They need to see whether by putting that sort of mechanism, are they able to cut down the cost or not. Because currently the space missions are basically whatever the interplanetary space missions are there, they are basically focused towards the research. So once we have the commercial angle attached with these space missions, which is what SpaceX is doing, let's say we have Mars travel happening in next 4 to 5 years, then probably for those missions they will be taking ahead with the development of this type of technology and utilization of this type of technology, because they are having some sort of commercial angle attached to it, and they can fetch some money and then put it again towards their research and further developments. So if the commercial angle is attached with such type of things, then obviously the technology will improve, and these newer technologies, be it laser based systems or nano thrusters running on plasma or other things, they will be basically catching boom with the help of all these missions. So probably yes, in coming years we can see that 4 to 5 years we can see that companies will be adopting to such mechanism and such technologies for deep space propulsion.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, we have a next question from Vipul Poddar. Vipul, you could just unmute and ask the question.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Sir, I have a question regarding like amateur rocketry. Like, how can we get started in like college level? What are the requirements?
Yeah, so for this particular thing, lot of content is available on internet because currently we also used to conduct various programs related to that, but now due to COVID, we have already stopped these things and are concentrating our current project. So that's why we have paused all these activities. So if you want to do it in the meanwhile, like during the lockdown, and if you are at home or if you are at college, if you want to start with these things, so what I can do is that I will just put up some links where you can just have go through some resources, and first you need to identify whether you want to go ahead with some sort of payload with that, or it's just a rocketry part you want to do. And after deciding, when we go towards the amateur rocketry, it is quite easy. Some ready-made motors are also available, and if not, you can go ahead with the DIY sort of motors that you can develop at home. Then coming to the regulatory and legal side of the things, you need to see that whenever you are going ahead with this type of activities, there should not be any residential area nearby. And if you are doing it with the help of college, then it is quite easy. So maybe you can take permission from the college. College will write to the local authorities if it is a big rocket. But if it is a small rocket which is going for around 100 to 150 meters, 200 meters, then obviously that can be launched from your campus itself. So that is quite easy.
Okay, sir. I will be looking forward to the links. So I have one more
Yeah.
question. Like, can we expect aerospike engines in the near future? Like, is there aerospike engines?
Just. Yeah, please. Can you please repeat?
Aerospike engines. Like, can we look forward to like coming development in that sector? Like, we have an well nozzle.
Yeah, yeah.
Can we look into aerospikes in the near future?
For particularly for the launch segment side of the things, or what?
Yeah, launch segment like aerospikes.
Yeah. So currently, if you talk about the launch segment market currently in India, so there are 2 3 companies working in this particular domain. We have Skyroot, Agnicool, Electrics. So all these are working in this particular domain. Then from the commercial viability of the things, again, first of all, you can not just come up with a futuristic sort of development and just start with that. Basic sort of thing needs to be completed first. That's why all these companies are first concentrating towards the normal rocketry, normal rocket launches, and they again will be going for the futuristic technologies that are available. So in India, yes, we'll be seeing latest technology adoptions in the launch segment as well, but it will take some time. But when we compare Indian, startup segment, which is working in space domain, and compare it with the US or European market, it is quite different because there is availability of funds there, and that's why, like, with the help of funding availability, startups and companies can take a lot of risks. So in India, it is quite opposite. The fund crunch is there, so that's why risk-taking ability of the startups is quite less as compared to the US and European market. So that's why startups obviously will be taking baby steps and slowly going towards the futuristic approach. But yes, it will take some time in India for these things to happen.
Thank you, sir, for the answer.
Thank you, sir.
The next question is coming from Rahul Kashyap. Rahul, you could just unmute and ask the question.
Good evening, sir. My name is Rahul Kashyap, and I want to ask a question that, as we know, drones by their nature are very weather vulnerable. So, what type of technology is being or can be developed to make them more weather resistant, so it does not affect their efficiency?
Weather resistant.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So see, first of all, like in India, again, I'll come to the same point which I had mentioned in the previous answer. So the problem is in India, we do not have, all these sort of developments happening on the technology side of the things. You might have seen the drones from the Chinese company DJI. Then there is a company from France which is Parrot Anafi. and AFI series drones. Then we have company from US, GoPro. They have also their drone segment which they are working upon. And in India, when we talk about drones, we have companies that are procuring the material from different countries and then integrating that material and then coming out with their own drones. Why this is happening? Because in India, we do not have any production facility for the custom components. Let's say if I want to develop a drone which should have let's say a capability of communication of around 10 to 15 kilometers, a range of 10 to 15 kilometers with a wireless transmission resolution of for video around 1080p. So let's say you came out with this type of specification and then you go to a vendor which develops electronic chipsets. So now when you give them this type of requirement, they will obviously not be able to develop this custom based chipset in India based on the requirements that you have given. Why? Because the requirements which you gave, these are quite futuristic and some sort of latest requirements, latest buzz thing which is happening in the industry, like increasing the resolution of the real-time feed. So this particular technology, this particular side of the development in India, it is yet to come. So it will take another 4 to 5 years if you want to develop such type of technology in India. And again, when it comes to the processor, when it comes to the radio-based modules for the wireless transmission, they again obviously you'll be procuring from outside as there is no silicon-based manufacturing happening in India. So components again after 5 years also you'll have to procure from outside in order to develop this type of technology. Then again, it comes to the weatherproofing and the resistance of that drone, ruggedness of that drone. That basically drives the things towards the material side of the things. So on the material side of the things also, in India, there is a problem that material science facilities in our country are basically, not available. So if you want to develop certain set of materials based on your requirements, based on the specifications or based on the, environmental conditions that you have given to the fabricator, it is not at all available in India. You can go for the materials which are readily available in the market. Let's say you want to develop some sort of casing for a particular project or particular electronics. That way, that thing you can easily do. But when it comes to the composite materials, when it comes to the material properties for aerospace grade materials or space grade materials, that sort of developments are lacking in India. So that's why like weatherproofing and all these things which you have mentioned and technology wise development in this particular area, it is quite difficult in India. So that's why like most of the people, they prefer to go to China or US if they want to work on these things. But yes, things are now changing. At least it will take 7 to 8 years for such things to happen in India.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So we have our next question from Ayushi Gupta. Ayushi, you could just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good evening, sir. So this is Ayushi Gupta. I have a question like for smaller aircrafts. For smaller aircrafts, we use solar power for research and everything. So what do you think? How can we use the solar power for civic aviation in coming future? Like, can we use, and if we, then in what way can we use it?
This is particularly not the area of my expertise, so I don't think that I'll be able to put much of highlight in this particular aspect. So maybe like if you have any more queries or anything you want to ask in this particular scenario, I might be able to connect you with some people who are working in this domain.
Okay, sir.
That will be a lot of help, sir.
Yeah.
Our next question is coming from Ishan Gupta. Ishan, you could just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Could you please explain about the area of research on the topic like currently you are working on?
Area of research as in like this particular domain.
Like Zovian is currently working on which latest project?
So I guess he's asking about your research thing, the use of drones collaboratively.
Yeah, so I
orthographic
guess
image.
that there was a problem with the write-up that I had given. So that was something which I had done in 2014-15. So write-up was, I guess, not that much updated because that is not we are currently working on upon. I had shown you this particular thing which we are currently working upon. So this is basically this passive radar-based satellite constellation. So if you are asking question that if there is any research scope in this particular domain, so then yes, I can put some light on this particular thing.
Yes, sir, sure.
Yeah, so basically this type of technology, when we collect this type of data, that comes under the GIS based system. GIS basically is Geographical Information Systems. So I also would like to know which domain you are from, CSC or which domain?
Sir, I am from like chemical engineering.
Oh, okay, okay. So your interest is there in this software side of the things or what?
Yeah, a bit of software side like.
So if you want to start with the GIS side of the thing, so maybe you can start with some sort of open source projects that are available. So one of the open source software which is available for all these things is QGIS. QGIS. So this is the software which is available and it is free of cost and open source. You can download the software and on the website, its website itself, there are a lot of tutorials available, like how we can process such type of data and what are the various implications of that sort of data and what are the various sectors in which we can utilize that data. So sectors are basically widespread sectors are there, ranging from vegetation to city planning to climate change and insurance cover. All these sectors are there. So if you want to start with the GIS, this is the best way you can start with. QGIS, GIS is the software. And then coming to the command line sort of things which are available for Linux and such type of operating systems, you need to have little bit idea about the Python. So if you know Python and on the UI side of the things, if you know QGIS, then probably these are the two good things to get you started with this particular domain.
Thank you, sir.
So we have one last question from Saurav Paul. He's asking, could you please explain the benefits of quantum communication system between satellites and the ground command center, which was recently achieved by ISRO?
Yeah, so this is basically a futuristic topic, and it is not going to have some, realistic implementation scenario in coming 5 to 6 years. So this is basically like US and other countries, they are heavily investing in quantum computing. So I have a lot of my friends in US and their universities are also putting heavy investments on quantum computing. So when we talk about India, then in India there isn't any, basically hardcore research happening in this domain. So when we are talking about the quantum computing side of the things, so it is not just to ease your task or provide some sort of innovation to the current going projects. It is just because that other countries are working on this, and this is quite futuristic thing, and it is going to have future implications where the data throughputs and the data processing speeds, if you want to increase, and we want to put the systems like currently what is happening, that a lot of supercomputers are there. Most of the supercomputers are there with the government, and some ISRO facilities, they also have their own set of supercomputers. So what happens that a supercomputer usually takes the area of around 2 to 3 BHK room. If you know the apartment size is 2 to 3 BHK, so that much area a supercomputer takes in order to compute a heavy data which is coming from the weather satellites. So now, when we talk about the supercomputers, they are utilized for data processing. They are also utilized for encryption side as well. Like various encryption algorithms can be run on the cores of these computers. Then, when we talk about quantum computers, what you can do is that when you use the quantum computer, the size of the computer, which is currently taking 2 to 3 BHK sort of area, that can be just put up in a machine which is around one tenth of that size. So now when you have such sort of computer and it has the capability of processing 100 times data which you are currently processing with your supercomputer, then it will have a lot of positive implications on the space missions. So yes, from the future sort of scenario, it will be having a lot of positive impact and lot of technical impact on the space missions which India will be conducting, be it in terms of data encryption, data processing, and accuracy in the services which ISRO provides. From that perspective, they are currently working on this thing. So I don't think that it will be utilized in 4 to 5 years. So it will take at least 9 to 10 years for the implementation in the satellites.
Thank you, sir, for answering that question. It was indeed a great interactive session, I guess. So,
Someone
sir, we could
else
proceed.
is raising hand, I guess. Any other question is there?
No, sir, we are having a bit tight schedule, so I guess we should move to the next session.
Yeah, sure. So if you have any queries, like the students, if they want to, have any particular query, if they want to send a mail, so I'm just putting my mail ID here.
Yes, sir. We'll be providing them your email ID.
Yeah,
so
mail
that
ID
they
you
can
can
ask.
provide.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So my username is Ankit Bhateja on social media platforms. So maybe if you want to reach out there, you can just put me a message. I'll be able to help you out.
That would be of a great help, sir. So we can proceed with the next session of entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. Goodbye. Take care. Yeah, you want to proceed with the entrepreneurship side of the things? Okay, I thought
if
you have
you
some other speaker lined up and
no,
you want to
no,
go ahead
sir.
with
I
that.
mean, for this
All right.
session, if you are free enough, then you could just proceed.
Yeah. So now what we can do is that basically I have seen like what sort of queries we are getting related to the technology. So now taking in view all these, taking in account in all these queries which I have got, be it related to the propulsion mechanism and the quantum computing and all these things. So now I'll be putting some highlight on the technology and entrepreneurship side of the things, like how this type of technology can be converted into a startup, and where students can jump in, and from where they can take some grants and support from the government. So I'm not going to go ahead with any PPT now. So it will be more of an interactive scenario. So you can just stop me in between and ask the query or ask the question if you have. So basically, currently, what is happening in Indian space segment is that most of the startups are currently in the very nascent stage. Nascent stage means that all the startups, they have just started working on space-based technologies, and it will take at least 4 to 5 years for them to come up with the product in the market. So be it the startups working on the rocketry, on the satellite development, or the services side of the things. For the services side of the things, the output for the companies or the startup is easy, because you have the data availability to to process the data. You have resources. You can easily set up a team and start processing the data which is currently available with ISRO and various other agencies of Government of India. So once you have the data, you can just process the data and come out with the various services related to Earth observation, related to predictive analytics of various industries, and then data processing related to the vegetation cover, insurance cover, and all these sectors. So that sort of thing is quite easy. Like you can already take the data which is available and come out with various ideas related to that, various applications related to that. So this is one side of the things in which you can jump in and start the startup, and it will take quite less time to come up with the end product with this particular thing. Then we have the technology side of the things, where you are talking about the satellite development, or providing development support, or launching your own satellites and providing the services. So this is the segment where currently 2 to 3 startups are working in India, including us. So this is something which is quite tricky and a little bit difficult from the just providing services and taking the data. So in this work, particularly what you need to do is that you need to have access to the resources where you can develop your own satellite and have the team which is able to understand the aspects of the space technology and provide you support with the development. And then again, you need to have some sort of facility where you can develop all these things. You can not just go somewhere and your satellite will be developed just like that. There are companies that provide you the development support of the satellite, but again, you also need to know what sort of satellite you want and what sort of satellite you need to develop for your particular application. Then only you will be able to give the orders. So that's why this is the part, this is the type of the startup where a lot of planning is required in order to come out with the end product in the market. Then we have the third segment, which is launch vehicle segment. So launch vehicle again is the most difficult task, because what is happening that you are here you are talking about the chemical compositions, you are talking about the material side of the things. Here you are talking about the aerodynamic side of the things. Again, here also the availability of manpower is a challenge. You need to have some sort of team which can work on all these things and have some sort of idea related to these things. Then there is other challenge which is related to the regulatory. So now what is happening? Let's say we have 2 to 3 startups currently working in this domain, and now let's say there are 4 to 5 startups. They come up and say that we also want to develop the rocket. So now government is not going to support the startup just like that, because you have the idea and you have the 3D models of the rocket. This is not the way government is going to support this type of startups. Why? Because the startups, they don't have their own test facilities. They don't have their development facilities. So if a rocketry startup is developing a rocket and they want to test it somewhere, obviously they will be seeking for the support of the government. And now with the policy which ISRO has come up with, the government of India have launched, which is InKSpace, in that you can utilize the facilities of ISRO. So now let's say there is a startup, they have just made up some sort of model rockets that we want to go ahead with this thing. They are not just going to provide the facilities to that particular startup. Why? Because it is very, very risky thing. Let's say government of India have provided permission to a startup that wants to develop a rocket. So now next day they take the facility, they start developing the things, and they are not from this domain, they don't have experience. So now they develop the rocket, and blast takes place in that particular facility. Who will be responsible for that? Because most of the machinery will be costing 5 to 600 crores. So who will be paying those expenses to the government when that facility is destroyed? So that's why taking support from the government on the basis of your idea isn't easy thing. It is totally impossible, and no government is going to give you the facility access just because you have a fancy idea or a futuristic idea. So that's why I want to come up with the few points here. So if you are planning to go ahead with the startup or some sort of venture in this particular segment, first you need to see that the idea that you're proposing, the idea which you are going to work on, isn't it should not be something like too much of fancy, too much of futuristic thing which you yourself don't know that if it is going to work or not. Because if you yourself don't know and you don't have any know-how related to that thing, you won't be able to prove yourself in front of the people who are going to provide you access to these facilities. So that's why you need not to just start the startup for sake of starting it. You need to start it just because you know that this is the problem that currently is there in the society, is there in is there around us. So that's why I want to solve it, and I want to solve it with the help of space technology, because space technology is the best way to solve that problem. So that's how you can proceed. sometimes what happens that let's say there is a particular problem. So let's say a student or a particular person comes up with an idea that there is a problem of traffic in the city, and there is a problem with the traffic in the city of Hyderabad or Delhi. I want to solve the problem of traffic, but now I have interest in space science. I will be solving this problem with space technology. So that is just putting, sort of uh, too much of pressure on your head. Like, yes, I want to solve this particular thing with the help of space technology for the sake of solving it. That's why I want to start something in space, because I want to solve the problem of traffic in the city. So that is not the right way, because if you know that city traffic problem can be solved with the help of IoT devices or some other devices, then you can go ahead with that. No need to just uh, you know forcefully put yourself into this domain. So this is one thing I would like to say. And then the second thing is coming to the policy and government support side of the things. So let's say you have an idea and you have tested it, or you know that it is going to work. So then after that, yes, there are a lot of grants, lot of support available from the government. Either you can approach the central government or you can approach the state government. So in state government also, there are a lot of schemes that you can access. And in central government also, there are a lot of schemes you can take benefit from. So if you, let's say, some sort of product that you want to develop, so from state and central government, you can have some sort of funding access of around 10 to 20 lakh rupees, which will be enough for the development of your prototype or some sort of application or some sort of product which you want to showcase. And at least that proof of concept can be developed with the help of that particular fund. So once you are sure that this thing is working and this prototype is ready, then again you can go ahead with the fundraising in the private equity rounds. So that is the way that all these things happen. So in order to go ahead with these things, you need to first register a startup. A startup could be a LLP. LLP is basically limited liability partnership, and it could also be a company. Company is private limited. So this is the what is the difference between these two things is that LLP, limited liability partnership, is when you register this type of setup, this type of organization. So what happens that when you register it, the responsibility of all the things that lies on the individual who owns that LLP. So let's say I have registered an LLP with a partner. So we both will be equally liable as an individual for anything that happens with that particular organization. Then when it comes to a company, so company acts as an individual liability, individual organization. So whatever happens inside a company, so company itself will be liable for all those things. Individuals will not be coming into that picture. So that's why if you are planning that you want to just expand the setup in coming years, and you have plans to go big, so start with the registration of the private limited company. Or if you know that your idea is not something you are sure of it will work or not, or you want to take some time in order to understand if it is if you are sure enough to go ahead with the startup or not, then you can go for LLP registration. So this is how this thing happens. So this is the basic idea of coming up with an idea and starting a startup around that particular idea. So any queries? Like this is a generic idea I have given to you. So now around this, whatever queries you have, you can come up with, and we can have a discussion related to all those queries.
So somebody is asking, like, if he is proceeding with a startup of which majorly deals with hardware component manufacturing of hardware components of satellites, then the satellite component related market is not yet developed in India as it is compared to other countries. So
right,
how to deal with those type of scenarios? I mean, with the supplier scenario, supply chains, creating supply chains for bulk production and all.
Yeah, so he rightly said that currently there isn't any private player that is taking the components. So in our case also, this is the same thing. We don't have any supply chain here because it is very difficult to establish the chain when the policy was not there. Now the policy is there, and it will take another 6 to 7 months for the space policy to be framed. It is still under development, but we know that now the infrastructure availability will be there. So coming to the regulatory thing and all. So in the year 2015-16, when we had started with these things, so that was very, very difficult. At that time, there wasn't anything available in terms of support for the startups that are working on the manufacturing side of the things. But now, let's say in 2021, there is a startup or there is a company that want to go ahead with the development of that thing. Then, as compared to 2015-16, it is very, very easy now, and there is a lot of support available from the government side as well due to this Atmanirbhar Bharat and after what has happened with the China. So there is a lot of support available, and government is also pushing the companies to indigenize the production of the small things which we are procuring from outside. So there are a lot of things that we are procuring from outside, even for space and aerospace sector. So now let's say the requirement is there and everything is there. How a person, how a startup will proceed and come up with some sort of production facility. So for that, you'll have to take step-by-step approach. First, you need to see what exactly you want to develop, whether there is a demand for that or not, because already ISRO has a set of vendors which are supplying them components and all these things from last 30, 40 years. So you need to see whether you are targeting the components that are readily available and you want to target those components by providing higher quality, or is it something that those players, those vendors are not able to provide, and you want to come up with something which is something different, and there is a need for that, and there isn't any current vendor for that particular thing. So once we have identified between these two things, let's say you come up with a decision that I want to go ahead with something which was not being provided by the current vendors, and I want to provide that particular hardware to the ISRO. So now how you can do that? So for that, first, obviously, again, you need to have some sort of team, some sort of facility, some sort of expertise in that particular area. So a lot of NITs and IITs now have STIC cells. STIC is basically space technology incubators that ISRO has established. So in those incubators, they already have some sort of projects going on in which they have certain requirements which were being raised from the ISRO side, that yes, these are the requirements at our end, and once somebody develops these things, we'll be able to take these things. So maybe you can approach some other NITs in which STICs are established. So this is the one particular thing that you can do, and then you can join the set of people who are working on that thing, and through that you can come up with a startup once that particular product is developed. So now coming to the funding side of the things. So for the development of the projects which ISRO wants, ISRO is already providing them the funding support. So whatever projects are going in different NITs, they are already providing funding support to these projects. So if you are associated with such sort of project, you will be getting funds for the development of the things which ISRO wants. So that is not something which you can say from your side that I wanted to develop this thing, so I want funding for this thing. So that is not the case. You will have to see what are the different projects that ISRO has given to that NIT, and then on the basis of that, you will be able to filter out the project which suits you. So that way, that is the one way you can proceed, and this is the best way you can proceed because funding is already available for such type of projects. Then the second case is, let's say you don't want to go ahead with the NITs or the STICs which ISRO has established. Then you will have to see totally from the commercial side, whether you'll have to see that if let's say I'm developing this thing, so if say let's say ISRO said that they don't want this thing, So now you need to see that because ISRO has said that there isn't any requirement for them for this thing, but you know that on the international market there is a requirement of this thing, and private companies also will be having a high demand for this thing. Then at your own risk you can come up with that sort of idea, and then that idea you can take to the state or central government, and for that particular thing you can raise different grants. So with the grant, you can develop the product. So once the product is ready, you can raise further funding and go ahead with your own startup. So these two are the scenarios which you can adopt for the manufacturing side of the things. And later at a Series A or Series B funding, you can establish your own facility, because most of the startups who are into manufacturing, they have different set of vendors. They just give them designs and they get it manufactured. In our case, it is also the same thing. We don't have any manufacturing facility where there is a big machinery present. We also have different vendor tie-ups. We give them certain component that this is the PCB we want to manufacture. We'll give them designs. We'll give them the material requirement. We'll give them the type of PCB we want. They will get it manufactured for us. So this is how a startup works. And later on, obviously, we can go for our own facility for the manufacturing side. So you cannot just directly put the money into the manufacturing unit at a initial stage. So this is the process that you can follow.
That was a wonderful explanation, sir. Thank you for answering those questions with utter patience and for giving us your valuable time.
Yeah, no problem.
Sneha?
Yeah, thank you, sir. It was a great pleasure to have you. Thank you for giving your valuable time despite your busy schedule. So this concludes the webinar. Thank you everyone for attending it. I'm sure the valuable inputs given by our speakers must have triggered an interest in the young minds to explore this field more. So this concludes it. Till then, follow all our social media handles to stay updated about our events. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for the interaction, and any queries you can just put it on social media. You can just DM me on Ankit Bhateja, ANKIT.
Sure, sir. We'll make sure that they receive your email.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you everyone. Yeah. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, sir.
Yeah. Good night.